Insight and awareness, spiritual explorer. Soul intuitive, emotional and spiritual mentor and award-winning author, Lorraine Nylon.
Welcome, explorers. I'm your host, Lorraine Nylon, and today our guest is Barry Eaton, who is well known as an author, radio and TV presenter, having spent many years with the ABC, which is Australian Broadcasting Corporation. He produces and hosts an internet radio program that explores the mysteries of life. This started originally in 1997 on mainstream, but has been going for 20 years, radioutthere.com, and it is enjoyed by a worldwide audience. His first book, Afterlife, Uncovering the Secrets of Life After Death, tracing the journey of spirit in between incarnations, was published in 2011. I'll be very excited to hear more about that. He also has Past Lives Unveiled, a fresh look at reincarnation, and another book called No Goodbyes, Insights from the Heaven World. Barry is a qualified astrologist and psychic, intuitive and medium. He was also given the 2012 Hall of Fame Award by the Australian Psychic Association. And if any of you recognise his voice, you might realise that he is also a GPS navigating system narrator for Jaguars and Land Rovers. I've never met anyone that's actually done that. So welcome, Barry.
What's this GPS business? I'm real, I'm live. I'm not AI.
But is
if I was AI, I'd be sitting here looking like this, wouldn't I?
But isn't your voice used for a GPS navigating system?
Oh, yeah, but I did that, 15 years ago.
Oh, there you go.
It's not AI.
No.
It's just recorded, just an ordinary narration.
Oh, okay. So would we still be hearing your name, your voice?
I would imagine so. You can go to the Australian War Museum in Canberra. I've done a whole lot of narrations for videos there as well. I've been working with my voice as a voice performer and actor for, dozens and dozens of years now. I may look young, but I'm not.
Well, thank you for coming on board. I have so many questions for you, and I'm interested to talk to you about in between incarnations. What have you learnt about it over your time of researching this? Because you come at it with a journalistic approach as well as your psychic abilities, don't you?
Well, in a way, I'm not a journalist. I was never trained as a journalist. I trained as an actor. And then I went into radio and TV presenting. I've still acted in films and TV shows and all sorts of things, but not as a journalist as such. So I approach it as a broadcaster. So I do my research, I know what it is, and I want to have a talk to people to find out what's going on. So I find out what's going on Earth, then I'm able to connect with the other side so that I can talk with them as well and help being a medium. So then it's a long story, Lorraine. You probably don't want the whole deal because it's in my book, Afterlife. But I was talked into writing that book from...
Was you?
I was, because my partner, Judy, at the time, passed over. And I was told that I could connect with her, which I did. That was the beginning of my real medium work. I'd done some before, but it really went into a new depth. So when I started to connect with Judy, I found that we were able to talk all sorts of things. I kept on getting a message, you have to write a book. Okay, I have to write a book. At the time, I was doing this and that and something else. So I was going to write a book. So every now and then, I'd get some kind of little prompt from the other side. And I was doing my radio program at this particular time. And one of my guests was a Canadian medium, wonderful man. And he's passed on now, unfortunately. But anyway, Robert said to me, hey, Barry, do you know Judy? And I said, yes. Yeah. He said, oh, yeah, well, she's come to me from the other side. I said, okay, right. What, Robert? And he said to me, Judy says, when are you going to write that book? So I started getting nagged from the other side of the veil. So I thought, oh, Joel, it's time to write the book, isn't it? So I did.
It's a good book. Actually, I read it when it was obviously back in 2011, and it's one of those first books where because I hear from the other side as well, and there's different things I knew, but it was really nice to read somebody else reaffirming that.
Yeah,
And
sure.
and like the recovery place.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can track people that have crossed over, but they're in that recovery place, and I make jokes. I haven't quite walked through the pearly gates yet, but they're
If you ever
working out.
find the pearly gates, let me know, will you? Because nobody I know has ever seen them.
No, that's a family joke for us, actually.
Yeah, fair enough.
But it's that when people die, sometimes when they've crossed over, they need that little bit of time to get their head around.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
So can you give us some more details on that?
Well, yeah, because when I started to write Afterlife, I wrote another book, first of all, and I sent it to my very good friend Maggie Hamilton, who at that time, she was my book editor when I first went on with Radio Out There. Then she left and went back, she was a writer, went back into publishing. So Maggie had a look at it and said, "Oh, I'll meet you for lunch, I'll let you know what's happening." So she meets me for lunch and she said, "I was on the way here to tell you that my publisher company, Allen and Unwin, which is Australia's biggest independent publisher, had decided, there's too many bits and pieces in it, we're going to knock it back." But she said, then on my way here to lunch, she said, I had a message from upstairs. Now that was Maggie's way of always talking about the spirit world, upstairs.
I do too.
Better than downstairs. Anyway, Maggie said, so what they said to me was, this book's not going to work, but how about you write a book about life after death? So, having never written a book before, I've written lots of feature stories and scripts and all sorts of things, but never written a book. And I'd always wanted to write a book, Lorraine. So I thought, I'm not going to say no to a publisher. I said, yes, I can write a book about the afterlife, thinking, where the hell do I start? And so then it went on. And of course, I got a huge amount of help from the other side. Yeah. Absolutely huge amount. I mean, I teamed up with a group of spirits over there. I also had a guide who was an ascended master, and he came through to me so that he would guide my fingers sometimes on the keyboard. Other times he would just push me in the right direction. And that was my team of experts on the other side, culminated in my first book, Afterlife. I was really proud of it. And I still am.
It's
like your first child, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And when it came out, here's the original copy, by the way. I'll hold it up for you. It's
That's
a bit tattered and torn right now.
Yeah.
But that's my copy. I got that as a Christmas present in 2010.
There
so
you
it was
go.
a Christmas present.
Excellent.
So I've used that ever since. But, it is still selling all around the world after over 12 years. And I still keep getting people saying, oh, thank you. You've done so much to help us. Our family is bereaved about some loss. And I said, no, they haven't lost. We know where they are.
Yeah.
So that was what we did to track what happened when you pass over. Because, there's no such thing as death. You wouldn't know that. I mean, we've been brought up to say we are a body with a soul. No, we're not. We are a soul with a vehicle called a spirit, enabling us to have a human experience. So the body is a vehicle for the soul, and that is what dies. It's the end of its run, it's like an old car, sometimes you've got to chuck it out, buy a new one. So that's what happens. When the body dies, the soul goes back to where it came from. Now, the soul is a pure energy. And the law of physics says energy cannot be destroyed.
Yeah.
So where does it go? Well, it goes back to where it came from. Call it the world of spirit, call it paradise or heaven or the other side or up there, upstairs, whatever you want. They're all labels, okay?
Yeah, all
it's
labels,
the world of spirit, pure energy. And that's where we all come from originally. We come as a break-off piece from the source of all creation. And that's God, the creator, whatever label you want to put there as well. But God, the creator, the source, I prefer, is pure energy. And we are part of that. We're a break off from that particular huge, huge ocean of energy.
So what do you class as, we come down here to Earth? How do you explain the journey, and what's the purpose of it all? We'll just ask you a little question like that. What's the purpose of life, Barry?
The purpose of life is the evolution of the soul.
Brilliant.
We're here
Love
to
that.
learn. We're here to make mistakes. We're here to have many, many, many experiences.
Yeah.
And when we've had enough lessons, we've made the mistakes, we've corrected them, and the lessons and mistakes we brought back with us, call it karma, we have to balance it all out. So when we've gone as far as we need to on Earth, we don't have to come back. But in the meantime, we keep on coming back, and that is our purpose. Now, within that overall purpose, we have an individual purpose as well, and that will relate to whatever karma, whatever your agreement, because we all have a contract. We agree to come back and do so many things in this lifetime, okay? So it's like any other agreement. Once you've done that, then you can move on. But if you don't, then you've got to wait and meet that, and maybe then pick up some other things as well. So this contract, if you like, keeps on going from lifetime to lifetime until we've balanced everything out. But within that life, we all have a big purpose. Now, I believe my purpose, for instance, is communication.
Mm-hmm.
I started off, I trained as an actor, I went into radio, TV, films, theatre, all sorts of things. And then I reached that certain time when it was time to use all of that and then move into a whole spiritual and metaphysical area, which is what I did in the very early 90s. In fact, in the 1980s, I was working on commercial radio doing talkback shows. If this program goes to America, they call it callback shows there. So I had lots of guests, took lots of phone calls, did everything. And it started off, I had a guest by the name of Mark Gruner. Now, Mark was a wonderful numerologist, fantastic. And he opened my eyes, he did all sorts of things, and he then introduced me to a guy called Gary Wiseman. And Gary was an astrologer. So then Gary became my teacher of astrology. And then it went on from there. Then I had another guest who contacted me. She was a wonderful psychic. So she came on the program. We then got our own show called Thought Waves, which was purely doing readings on air. And one day she said to me, you know, you're going to be doing this yourself soon. I said, oh, come on, give me a break.
So you would have been one of the first to do that.
I'm sorry?
You would have been one of the first to actually do that.
Yeah.
You know, like we see psychic TV channels and things like that.
Oh, yeah, this was long before that.
Yeah.
This was back in the late 80s.
Yeah.
So she said to me, this is what you're going to be doing. I said, well, I've too much on my plate now. So, but she said, don't worry, it will happen. And it did. I had a major transformation in life. Astrologically, it was known as a Pluto transformation. In real life, it's called divorce. So once that happened, it opened a whole new doors, Lorraine. So, you know, sometimes divorce can be the very best thing that ever happened.
I think so. Yes, I
and it
think
was.
so. Yeah.
So anyway, that's a bit of a nutshell, pretty big nutshell, but anyway.
Yeah, because it's interesting. Because when you I always say people look at their lives and they go, oh, yeah, I haven't, it's a bit boring and all the rest of it. But when you actually talk about, for anyone, if you actually talk about the events that have happened in your life and the different emotional states you've been in, everyone's got a really interesting life.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Fascinating.
And it's proportionate to what you are here to do, or relative, I should say, to what you're here to do. Some people are here to be a wonderful family person, to bring up children, to be supportive, to learn and maybe study or whatever. Other people here to change the world.
Mm. Yeah.
We all can't do the same thing, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's right. I call that the blueprint, and I always explain to people it's like a little mud map.
Yeah.
You've still got your free will, but there's just going to be these opportunities that we're that will present themselves, crossroads, and you'll decide if you're going to renege on your actual contract,
Yeah.
on your blueprint, or whether you're going to go for it. But don't worry, it'll keep cycling around and keep, presenting itself. So,
Yeah, well, that's what I was told from the other side. We talk about destiny, but we have destiny points in our lifetime. And they are, if you write a script, for instance, for drama, for film or whatever, they have what is called a series of plot points. And this plot point changes direction, opens up things for the hero or the heroine or the villain or whatever to be able to move in another direction, open up a whole new part of the script. Now, we have destiny points all through our life, but we are not here as total destiny, because in between the destiny points, we have free will, and that is how our lives pan out. So there's destiny, but there's also a lot of free will, thank heavens.
Yeah, that's right, definitely. So, yeah, and that's how I've wrote a lot about, life is really an evolutionary journey.
Yeah.
Or you're going to be doing reconnaissance, which you might not evolve, but you'll be experiencing a lot of things that, maybe next lifetime you might evolve.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's
right.
who are we to say how this journey should be for any person? We've all got our own unique
But we
path to
can't
walk.
complete any lifetime. We can't complete whatever we're here to do unless it's that final lifetime. And to be able to do that and not come back, you maybe have had to have hundreds of lifetimes. You can't just get a good mark in the last life and say, "Oh, good, I got 100%. Well, that's it. Bye. I'm not coming back." You have to have earned your place right through and have a clean slate. That's basically it, from what I've been told.
Yeah, and the way I explain it is that anytime you're reacting or living out an experience that's not in tune with your soul, so you're coming from it could be resentment or jealousy, or that you're out of kilter with the honesty within yourself.
Yeah.
Which we do, unfortunately. That's building up your soul's unconsciousness, I call it, emotional baggage. And when people talk about karma, I always say it, just think of it as just an action that you're doing, and you're generating and creating energy. And if that energy it's like not of your soul, then it's sort of like the crap you throw in your backyard. Now, somewhere along the line, you're going to have to go and clean that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you might not be, you get people talk about, oh, you're going to have the same experiences and you're going to, not really, but whatever. Say if I've got resentment stored in my system, and I have an experience, because that's within me, I could respond with resentment because it's within me.
Yeah.
But it flags it up so I can go, oh, do I want to repeat this, or do I want to deal with my resentment?
Yeah, very true.
And I call those little paths, they're the reconnaissance. You have these experiences so you can pull up anything that's in the backyard that needs to come to the forefront. Yeah. And that's how you evolve, by dealing and getting really honest with yourself, dealing with your emotions and getting really honest with yourself. Yeah.
Well, that's a very good analogy, because if you think about it, if you've got a bunch of rubbish in your backyard, you can maybe live with it. But then you want to sell the house and move on.
Yes.
Nobody is going to want to buy a place full of rubbish in the backyard. So what do? You clean up the rubbish, you get rid of all the horrible things, clean the place up, and then when it's all spick and span, I can sell it now and move on. Yes. Think about that with life.
Yeah, that's how it works, isn't it? Really? Yep. And sometimes we leave it to the very last minute. I'm going to sell this house, and then we do the big scramble. But you can actually clean it up as you're going along.
Well, that's very true, because most people sort of get to the stage, they bring the real estate agent in and say, we want to sell the place. And the estate says, what? Yeah, all that rubbish there? You expect me to sell it and make money? So the real estate is spirit saying, come on, guys, get your act together.
That's right.
And that is coming from our soul. That's the message that's coming through our heart, because that's where the soul attaches itself to the body, at the heart. That's why we talk about heart and soul. Yes. So when you communicate with your soul by connecting with your heart, then that message will come from your soul. And that's the most, and most of us don't listen.
Yes.
And we can. we can meditate, we can go down deep, and we can listen to our soul.
Yeah. And anytime we're being self-reflective, that's the part of us that we tap into once we get to that point of being
That's right.
honest. Yeah. It's that level of honesty and truthfulness
Yeah.
that lets you
very
feel
true.
feel your authenticity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And what kind of questions, what would you say people ask you most? Because I imagine you get bombarded with so many questions. So what do people really want to know about? What are they curious about?
No, look, I don't get bombarded. I get asked, what do I need to know about moving on? What's in store for me? Because most people uh, have a faint belief, at least, in an afterlife. I mean, if you didn't, how boring would that be? If this is it, this is one lifetime, I mean, forget it.
Mm.
The inequality of life just shows, for a start, that we're all working on a different plane. So we have all these different experiences. So I am asked whether or not we all move on to go to heaven. Do we go to hell? Well, there's no such place as hell. But on the other side, there are many different levels. And within the first level that we normally go back to is the third level. And the third level is sort of the basic level. There are various areas in between. That's called the plane of illusion. And we come and go from there. But there's several levels within that, or several sections within it, and we can move on and whatever. But what we do then, we go back there, we heal, we meet up with friends, we meet up with family, and we can then come back and communicate with our loved ones. And that's where we have the readings from, that's where mediums tune in. And this is where we come and go. And it's lovely, beautiful. We create everything through thought. But after a while, it's time to come back. Now, you may not think it's time. You may get a little tap on the shoulder. Okay, time to go back. Or else some people get bored. Oh, nothing to do here. I really do miss certain things on earth. I'm ready to go back. It comes from within the soul itself. So then they can come back. But when you are ready to move on to the next level, now this is called the world of idealized form. So it's the fourth level. The plane of illusion is the third level. So it equates to the whole area of our third dimension, really. Although there is no time in the afterlife, absolutely no time at all. I mean, our time is measured by the amount of time it takes our planet to go around the sun.
Yeah.
So the world of spirit is another dimension. It's a dimension of pure energy, as I said before. So then that has many, many different levels. And the world of idealized form is the next one that we can go to. And that's basically the fourth level. Now, once you get there, you've really gone as far as you can go on the third level. So you're ready to move on. You're ready to let Earth go completely. And you may then move on to be in other worlds, or you may just be there to work in helping other people, doing all sorts of things. But you're not worried about connecting back with Earth. So people sometimes think, oh, I can't communicate with my mum or my dad or Auntie Flo or somebody. So they've moved on. They don't need to have that connection. So, but there will always be people in the third level, that's the world, the plane of illusion, that will be able to communicate with you. But then when we move on, there are many levels above that until we don't need, we explore, we go a world of flame, a world, a plane of light, and then eventually the plane of the spirit realm, which was identified by Frederick Myers back in the 19th century. Pardon me. And this is where we then go back to source. This is where we are pure, pure energy and ready to reconnect and join source once again. So that's a pretty long trip, let me tell
She's
you.
a journey, yeah.
But all of us here are still on that plane of illusion. But we can come back from that, even from a higher realm, to help people here. So spirit guides, people like that, can come back again to be here to help. And that is the most important thing. You may not know that somebody is a spirit guide, because most of us believe our guides are pure spirit, but some of them come back in human form, shall we say. We call them earth angels, all sorts of things like that.
Yeah.
Come and go. They're not always here. Sometimes they come, sometimes they then disappear. It's a wonderful, wonderful system, but it's so vast and so complicated and so all-encompassing. There's really no one simple answer. But there are some answers, like there is no hell. There are lower planes. So if you're Mr. or Mrs. Nasty, you start, killing people, doing all sorts, just starting wars, all sorts of things like that, you are not going to go back and be given some kind of wonderful recognition. Oh, and by the way, when we go over there, you're not issued with a harp and a cloud.
Damn.
That's rubbish.
Really?
So, no, sorry about that. So buy your own harp here. And,
I wanted the halo.
well, you probably think one up. It happens with thought, the power of thought.
Power of thought, yeah.
So that's how they communicate over there.
Yeah.
And that's how, as a medium, if I'm communicating with people on the other side, I'm doing it by thought, and I get certain vision, but they're talking to me inside my head.
So when we cross over, I'm under the understanding that we do like a review of this life, and that we will feel different experiences, and we will feel what it was like for us, and we will feel how our decisions and actions and words we said have impacted other people.
Yeah.
You have the same awareness?
Oh, yeah, very much so. We do go back, and quite often we go back to a council of elders. Now, it might only be a small council or whatever, but we go back, and it's right at the end of a sporting event where the coach sits down and does a video replay, right? This is what you did there. Look at that. You made that mistake. Oh, you did that well. Whatever. So then you go through that very, very quickly, and you find out and experience how you may have hurt people, but also how you may have helped them. So then once you have done that, then you're working with your spirit people over there to be able to work through all that, learn the lessons, and make sure that when you do come back and you brought some of that stuff back with karma, you know how to deal with it in the next incarnation. But yes, we all have a review, but we are not judged. We are not told, you did a dreadful thing, go off and sit in the mountain all on your own. None of that. No.
Yeah.
It's love, and we're helped.
Yeah.
Even those people in the lower planes, they're helped by people coming down from the higher planes to help them, and it's done with love, understanding. And sometimes it may take quite a few lifetimes for them to really move through all of that, because they've done so many bad things, but they're helped.
Yeah.
They're helped.
And I always try to explain to people, just remember too, when you cross over, your awareness and understanding of how everything works is there. So you embody that. So you're not coming from where we are today. You've got a completely different understanding of how it all works once you're there.
You still take things back with you. You don't suddenly, you're feeling a lot better, and if you've had a leg amputated or other horrible things, after the healing process, you don't have those problems. But you can take back things like drug addiction and various other things to work on. So people who really hit the drug scene here may not be able to sort that out in the afterlife. They may have to come back here next time to sort that one out. There are certain things that we cannot just expunge by going back to the afterlife.
That backyard needs to be cleaned up.
Individual.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's it. Or we're responsible for what we create. So every decision we make is a creation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true.
And why is it, with our past lives, when I read people's past lives, which I don't advertise, I do past lives, but sometimes they come up in my sessions and I will read them then, and it's like a little mini series, and then people can understand it looking at, a life that doesn't feel like right today, and it will have the same sort of lessons. So I understand, for me, it's important for people to understand their past lives when it's in that context. Why do you think it's important for people to understand their past lives?
Because most people don't learn from the past. We've only got to look at the world. The world does not study history.
No.
Looking at what happened is what happening in the world right now, as here as an astrologer, it was echoed back 245 years ago. And all the uprisings we're having now were in those days known as the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and all sorts of other uprisings. Now, what are we having right now? And this is all to do with the planet Pluto. And it's going back into the sign of Aquarius right now. And that is the huge problem that's facing. We've had control by authorities for far too long. We've been controlled by governments. They've been pushing out all sorts of measures, fear, all sorts of things. That is coming to an end. The people are starting to be heard. Now, that happened 245 years ago. But do we learn? I mean, I've done quite a few talks in recent years about planetary movements, and that it all correlates with what is going on, or what has been going on quite a few years ago. For instance, in the world now, it's very, very similar astrological conditions that were in the 1930s leading up to the Second World War. We had dictators like Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, all of these people. So what have we got now? Dictators.
Mm.
I say no more.
Yeah.
We are not learning from history. And astrology moves in cycles. That's what we learn. And people don't learn that. They don't learn from their mistakes. That's why they have to keep coming back. So the more we can focus on what happened in the past, what we've come back into this lifetime to do, and we are influenced by past lives and events. That's why I wrote that book, Past Lives Unveiled, talking about sometimes we have to finish the work that we started in a previous life. I wrote in my book about a guy called Norm Shearley. Now, Norm is a wonderful doctor, a neurosurgeon he was, and then he had this wonderful, I guess, epiphany where he found out, it's a long story, so I won't go into it, didn't read the book, and he found out that he was another doctor in the 19th century. There's a picture of him as this doctor, and as he is now, at that age, and they look like brothers.
Oh, really?
But he came back to finish the work that he did in that lifetime. Continued some work, and he had to finish off certain other things because he introduced drugs into into surgery in those days. So now he's had to come back again to be able to work and move away from what he was promoting then. But there were other aspects of his work as well. Right. Fascinating man. Yeah. Absolutely. So from being a world-famous neurosurgeon, he worked also with Caroline Myss for ages. You know Caroline Myss?
Yeah.
Well, he was the doctor who worked with her, helping to analyse what people's problems were. Caroline would look at it spiritually, and Norm would then turn around and work out how to be able to help them as far as medical science was concerned. Now, what does he do? Well, in his 80s, he runs a wellness clinic. Total spiritual man. Delightful. He's moved on from all of this very sort of logic, left brain stuff, right through to total spirituality. The man is absolutely wonderful. One of my very favourite people on earth.
That's brilliant. One thing that I have observed for a lot of people, especially when you go to the spiritual expos and places like that, it is like we are, like when I observe the crowd, it's like they're looking not to do the work, not to really get into dealing with their emotions. They're looking for something that's going to tell them they're going to be okay, which I get there's a purpose for that. Don't get me wrong. There's an absolute purpose for that. But I was, I watched them, and it's like, as humans, we're so frightened of actually getting really honest with ourselves, and that stops our evolution. So, and I always think if we understood it better, that there's a bigger purpose to really dealing with your emotions, your anxieties and your insecurities and your fears and your negative self-beliefs. If you really get into them and deal with them, you're actually evolving your soul.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. I mean, like you, I started off doing mind, body, spirit readings many, many years ago because my astrology teacher I mentioned before, Gary Wiseman, started off the whole psychic pool, or the Shark Tank it was known. And I went in there, and it was my first professional reading I ever did was at the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival. Now, I got a lot of experience, but when I found that people, as you say, were not really interested, they were there, it was very superficial. Sure,
Yeah.
it was better than nothing,
Yes.
but they want instant answers. I mean, I used to have one woman who came along with a list of financial questions. Now, should I invest in this company or whatever? I'm not a financial advisor. If I was, I'd be charging you $200 an
That's
hour.
right.
You know? But they want instant answers.
Yeah.
But they're starting. And now we have to work on that to help them realize that, as you say, Lorraine, going inside, understanding what life is all about, and not just wanting the very simple answer, well, yeah, am I going to get together with my boyfriend again, or is he going to ask me to marry him, or whatever?
Yeah.
I used to have that all the time. They'd say, oh, I've broken up with my boyfriend. Do you look at the cards and see if he's going to come back to me? I say, well, doesn't look like it. Oh, when am I going to meet somebody else?
That's it's so funny because that's what we do. We were all, but I think sometimes too it's like if you it's all right to start there, but keep coming forward, keep
Yeah, that's right.
and really look at the deep stuff, because that's when you're going to get those big results.
But you have to do that with a session with somebody who can help you with your particular problems. I still do readings these days, but I do a combination of astrology, mediumship, and spiritual counselling. And that is, to me, I've evolved to that stage. But if somebody says to me, am I going to meet somebody? I say, well, if you are, good luck to you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And how are you going to turn up? How are you going to turn up to that experience?
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm not here to be a fortune teller. I'm here to help you to help yourself. That is my rationale as far as I don't do a lot of readings, but when I do, I want to help people to help themselves. Not just come in and say, help me.
Yeah, do it for me.
Do it for me.
Yeah. I always say I'm like the tour guide. I'm going to throw a flashlight onto something. I'm going to explain what it is that I can see. And then you're going to have to put the pieces together of what it means to you. And then it's like, I can find the things that are like barriers to you actually understanding yourself.
Yeah.
But then you've got to do I present some information.
Work.
Yeah, but you've got to meet me halfway.
Yeah.
I said, I'm only going to bring you to your freedom of choice.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah. No, I enjoy it. I really do enjoy it.
That's the main thing.
Yeah.
And if you're helping people to help themselves, good for you.
Brilliant. So I'm going to ask you the big question. What do you think our big question, I should say, what do you think humanity needs to acknowledge and understand for us to evolve?
Oh, God. Probably God, yes. We need to move away from the material.
Yeah.
And that is our main problem. The world is so materialistic. And we need to move on from that. Yeah, sure, we've got to pay the bills, we've got to earn money, we've got to do that. But that is not the be-all and end-all. We have to look at the spiritual side of life. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about we as spiritual bodies. And that is what we have to come to. Look deeper within. There are more people doing it, fortunately.
Oh, definitely,
but there's not enough. There are too many people out there at the moment. You read so many things about somebody will say something on TV or whatever, and they'll immediately be besieged by all those trolls shouting abuse at them. I mean, I saw one thing the other day where a young a tennis player, that's right, and she was saying, I can't win. She said, if I win, I get all these people saying, we bet against you. What a dreadful person you are. Then if she loses, I bet on you. What an evil person you are. I said, I can't do anything right.
Yeah. I always say
that's where we're going. We're blaming other people. We're not taking responsibility for ourselves and our own direction. Say to the government, oh, come and look after me. And that's where we are right now. help, I need help. Come and do it for me. I don't want to work. I want money. Give me money.
Yeah.
And we've got to get away from that material aspect and work out what life is all about.
Yeah.
And that's a big call. But
Oh, it is a big call. It is. It's and it is really. It's really hard. There's a fear factor of letting go of the materialistic and things like that, and coming back to, okay, what's going to fulfill my life, and
well, that's right, because I mean we've been bombarded daily
yeah,
with people saying, "Oh, the world, the inflation is going up. We're going to have a dreadful budget this year. Oh, everything's going to be tight." And then we hear that all the time. But
yeah,
we've got to move beyond that
yeah,
and start
yeah,
being positive.
yeah. And well, I suppose we've got to look at the systems that we've set up, that we can get in positions where, you know, people can be hurt. You know, Mr. and Mrs. Suburbia can be hurt by these decisions over here, and then, you know, making their mortgages so high that they can't jump over them. Then, you know, then we've also got to look at, well, we invested in these homes that were so expensive that
Yeah.
we were on the tight
Yeah.
rope walking, going, one thing goes wrong here and it's a whole, you know. So there's lots of different aspects of the system that we need to look at and get really honest about how it impacts us, the way we live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's true, because I have a very good friend of mine who was a top TV personality in London. Now, he had a very bad operation last year. He and I had an operation about the same time. He in London and in England and me in Australia. That's why I'm a bit slurry at the moment. I had an operation on my mouth. Um, and I rang him the other day for his birthday, and he's having a really bad time. He's hardly mobile, all sorts of things. And he talked about somebody else, and he said, no matter how bad you are, there's always somebody worse off than yourself.
Mm.
And that is so true. I mean, if you've got a house with a roof over your head, actually you might be struggling with a mortgage. You might be having problems, but there's always somebody else. Look at the people in Ukraine, absolutely
Yeah.
blasted out of their home, their country, nowhere to live,
Yeah.
no future, no hope in many cases.
Mm.
Boy, we can complain, but people are still going out and playing poker machines and running out and betting at the horses and whatever. So there's still plenty of money around. People want to complain.
Yeah.
And we
And I
can't do
think
it.
when you are in that spiral, you know, like if you are in that mental spiral where you're telling yourself the world's caving in on you, it is that, come back and ask yourself, is what I'm telling myself factual, or is it my fear talking? And then it's like, okay, if I don't like where I'm at, how can I help myself deal with it so I can move somewhere or move forward or adjust my mindset? Because you can have two people. You can have one person that's got $2.50 in the bank, and you can have someone that's got 250,000 in the bank, and they can be emotionally responding to the figures, going, "Oh my God, you know, like I haven't got enough money," and living the same thing. It's all our perception and what we do with wherever we find ourselves. So we've got to build our resilience and be very self-reflective and honest about, okay, where am I? How'd I get here? Yeah, that's the big question. How'd I get to here? And that's a hard question to answer a lot of the time, because we have to take that self-responsibility.
And be honest.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Oh, there are a lot of people who are homeless, a lot of people who are having huge problems. And I'm not talking about them, I'm talking about other people. But fear is such a weapon. And I always look at fear, FEAR, as false evidence appearing real.
yeah,
And once you start looking at the fears that you had maybe a few weeks ago, a few months ago, last year, the year before, how many of them actually came into being? How many
yeah.
of them somehow went away?
And the ones that did come to play out, you dealt with, because you're here. You know what I mean? Like, how many fears did you have
Yeah,
that actually, when you got into that position, I was talking to someone that had fear of, talking on stage. And I said, but you've done it before. You had the same fear before, and you did it. And it's okay to be nervous before you go out there. But just remember, last time you nailed it, you did well.
that's right.
Yeah.
But
So,
if you don't have that nervousness, that adrenaline flowing as an actor, if I was going to go on stage, or if I'd stand up to make a speech or presentation or MC, I do a lot of MCing, or I used to before my operation, I was always, the heart would go a bit faster and all sorts of things, what am I going to do, whatever. But then, when you go in there, that disappears. If you weren't on edge, if you weren't having that adrenaline flow, you would be boring.
Yeah, that's true.
Laurence Olivier, the wonderful actor, used to virtually throw up every night before he went on stage.
Right. Yeah.
But when he went on, he was the world's greatest actor. But that's what you go through, and you have to fight that. You have to go. You have to conquer it, and we all do. We all have nerves. I mean, I was terrified when I had to do my first speech. I ended up teaching people how to speak. So there you go.
It's just sort of embrace where you're at, isn't it, really?
That's right.
Yeah, definitely. So would you like to play Flip the Book?
Flip?
So there's 3 books to pick from, 1, 2 or 3. I know you can't see them. So which book? It's an intuitive exercise.
All right. Well, I'll go for number 3 because that's my numerology number.
Okie dokie. Well, that is what we refer to as the big book. So that's your Insight and Awareness book. So you've got 1 to 430 pages to pick from.
Okay. Well, seeing as I'm in the 3s, why don't we go to page 333?
Okie dokie. Oh, it's actually a photo. It's a picture. So
there you go.
Can you see that?
I can, but maybe we better go to the other page then.
Oh, well, I will explain it. So it's a lady falling into the pit of her unresolved emotions. So the energy of her soul's unconsciousness. So she's looking very freaked out. But through that energy of her unconsciousness is the energy of grace. And the caption is, when you are operating from your unresolved emotions, you fall from grace, separating from your awareness of your soul and disassociating from feeling the truth of your own energy. It is your fall from grace that allows you to experience and explore the truth of the energy of your soul's unconsciousness, which is part of the natural process of resolution and evolution. So how would you describe the process of resolution and evolution?
Well, getting back to what we were talking about a couple of minutes ago, it all comes back and synchronizes with fear. Because if you're operating from a base of fear, then you are not in a rational, emotional, and spiritual area of your mind, your consciousness, your body, whatever. So getting back there to understand yourself and relaxing and going into that soul energy, that to me is what it's all about. It's interesting that comes up as a complete follow-on to what we're talking about. False evidence appearing real.
Definitely.
Look beneath the falseness. Look for the truth. Look deep within. Don't just look at the surface.
Yeah.
It's like looking at a headline in a newspaper and then not reading the article. And saying, yes, I know all about that. I read that article. No, you didn't. You looked at the headline.
Yeah, I like that. So with the astrology, are things written in, does the astrology give us some of our destiny points that you were talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Right, so the time we're born and the...
Oh, yeah. It's a journey through life. It goes from that moment you were born, that's why we have to know the time you were born and the place, and then it doesn't say when we're going to die or when the body's going to die, because that's up to us, up to the other side. And I was told by a medium recently that I recently had several exit points if I had wanted to take them, but I didn't. I thought, I don't remember that. But it's all subconscious.
Yes.
So we have those exit points at various times. We all do. Sometimes people take them very early because the soul had gone far enough. But we then go on and then go for whatever we need to.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I want to do the other book as well, just out of curiosity. So this book the back part of the book talks about your soul, like the individuality of your soul. So I only use the back part of the book because it's actually a book written for abuse victims. This kind of information is going in my next book, which hopefully will be out at the end of the year if all goes well. So can you pick a number between 189 and 215? 189 and 215.
209.
209.
2 and 9 is 11. It's a very spiritual number.
Okie dokie.
That's occurred to me then. I didn't do it because of that. But just,
So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs to pick from.
Paragraph 4.
Paragraph 4. So this comes under the heading. So these I speak of the core essence. So the core essence is within your soul, right? So this comes under purity. So purity is transparency of truth that is always there. Truth may be hidden beneath the deception placed upon it or exploited with manipulation and corruption. But regardless of what occurs, beneath that which is not pure is the purity of truth. Truth can be deceptively built upon, but can never be completely replaced. Truth is the foundation that deception is built upon, but constructions become unstable when they are not true to their foundations, which become overloaded and exposed. Deception is always threatened by truth. Truth may be concealed by deception, but it is never altered by deception. Truth remains, even if never discovered. Purity is truth. Interesting.
Very, very.
Yeah.
Well, to me, that the first thing I thought about was the fact that it describes what's going on in the world today. Because the last few years, we've had so much corruption, so much fear being pushed at us, so many, well, I'm not going to go in political here, but truth has definitely taken a back seat. But now, truth is coming out. All sorts of things are emerging as to what's been going on in the last 3 years, and it's all coming out, and people are starting to wake up. So truth will always come through one way or another. Not always the full truth, but at least it will start to help people to realize there is more than what we've been fed by a whole lot of very corrupt people. Unfortunately, that is the planet at the moment. We have a lot of very corrupt people, and they have been really force-feeding us. So we have to look for that truth. Look deeper, not just trust what we're being told all the time. Question, think for yourself. That's really important.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we're all starving for the truth, and we're tired of the spin doctoring and all the rest of it.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and
look, that's a nice way. I can think of other words, but I'm
I'm diplomatic when I need to be, Barry.
I'm not.
And you've really tried to find the purity of truth in all the works that you've done.
I do.
Yeah.
And that is why the 3 books that I've written, Afterlife, No Goodbyes, and Past Lives Unveiled, I'm looking for the truth of what life is about, what happens when we arrive and when we go, and in between, and when we come back, and when we're here before. So I'm looking for that truth to be able to help people find their own truth.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. And that's what the past reveals for us, the truth of who we really are. And then once we can face that and work with it and discover our own truth and be honest about it, then we can move on in life. That's important.
That's right. We can start resolving and then involving.
Yep.
I love it. Well, thank you for all the work that you have done and that you put out there. I know I've appreciated it. So, and thank you for being on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I've had a really enjoyable time.
I did too.
Thanks, Lorraine.